All right, I'm going to move in and we're just going to hold the questions till the end because we may use this for the app. So I'm going to move into the top 3 coaching mistakes that we have made. Now, some of you, about maybe 35% that have been around for a while, you're going to be shaking your head. I've done that. The other 65 to 70%, depending on where you are in your journey, are going to have different responses. Some of you might feel attacked. Some of you, what I'm saying is just, you're going to think it's just nonsense. That is not true. That's nonsense. I can't believe he just said that. I'm going to tell my mom he said that. I might want to leave the program after hearing that. Some of you might think I'm talking to you, like specifically, like, oh, he's talking to me. He's picking on me. This is just a way of him to just talk to me because he's too cowardly to tell me up front. So that's what some of you are going to be thinking. I thought those things. And I thought those things so strongly that I had to live these mistakes myself before I actually believed them. Because when they were told to me or I read about them, I was like, that is so against the grain. That is just not true. And then I experienced them. So my heart here is for you guys not to make these same mistakes. I have a duty and an obligation to tell you that these will steer you wrong in growing your business. So mistake number 1, man, this was the worst for me. Thinking that formal education matters as a requirement to help others and grow your business. I was domesticated to believe that. My mom had 2 master's degrees. My sister is an attorney. My brother he graduated with honors in college. So I was domesticated to believe if you don't have the credentials or the education or then you have no business in business. And what I found is that's a form of imposter syndrome. So that was my belief. So instead of being a producer, I was a consumer and I consumed. These are just the ones that I saved. I actually ended up throwing away quite a few, but I consumed certification. This is specialist in nutrition, ISSA, NASM, fitness nutrition specialist. Expert rating, expert fitness nutrition specialist, CrossFit level 1, ACE, another nutrition certification specialist extraordinaire. Let's see, this one fell out of the frame. Oh, this is my first NASM certificate. Eat to Perform certificate, World Instructors Training Schools, CrossFit Advanced, and National Strength and Conditioning Association. And I threw a bunch away because in the moves, they just got thrown away. Nobody hired me. I didn't help any human beings because of any of those. Nobody cared. And I learned that the hard way. How did I learn that the hard way? I learned that because while I was out taking time and investing it and paying money for these certifications, there were people with hardly a high school education out changing lives and helping other humans. And I used to hate them. I was a little young, immature. I try not to have hate in my heart, but I'm like, they're not even certified. They have no right to help other humans. And it took some mentors in my life to just tell me the hard truth. He goes, they're taking what they've consumed and then becoming producers and sharing it with others. You're consuming and consuming and consuming and not sharing it with anyone. So they're helping more people. And by the way, they're getting paid more than you. So for me, I was suffering from a form of imposter syndrome of not being enough. I'm not enough. I can't help another human unless I have these letters after my name. Also, what I was manifesting is a form of perfectionism. I must be perfect to help another human being. So super, super important. Now, what I'm not saying, learning is a form of consumption. And the more we consume, the more we can typically produce, because the more information we can share. So what I'm not saying is that learning and education can increase your capacity to share more. Sure, the more you learn, the more you can share, for sure. But what I'm saying is it's not a prerequisite. And some of y'all think it's a prerequisite. I got to get this cert. I got to get that cert to help this human being. Learning is also fun. I mean, it's fun. I like learning. I was just texting friends about the skeletal muscle protein synthesis. It was fun. They were like asking questions. It's cool. Can improve confidence. Consuming the right information can actually improve a skill that we need to get better at. And it might open up doors. You know, we were hoping Erica's PhD in holistic nutrition would open up all kinds of doors. It didn't. But it might. Maybe in the future. Who knows? So mistake one is relying and thinking that the not enough syndrome. Unless I have this, I can't do that. You guys are all equipped. And I love what Grant Cardone says. He says, the best education is creating problems for yourself. What the heck does that mean? Okay, well, when we got into real estate, we had no idea. I didn't get any like formal education. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I'm like, well, that sounds good. So we jumped into it. And then all of a sudden we started having problems for ourselves. We had to start figuring things out. That wouldn't have happened reading books. That wouldn't have happened going to classes. So as we figured things out, okay, cool. We really messed up this first time. Second time we'll get it right. No, we got it all wrong again, but we got it wrong less. You know, now we're on our 7th property, still getting it wrong. Looks like I'll be in small claims court next month, get to learn stuff, learn about the legal stuff. That's great. I'll take that knowledge and apply it. So we learn by doing. And that's what's really cool here. I don't have any like real estate mentors or coaches. You guys have like, oh my gosh, Jesse, I have a client. What the heck do I do? I've created a problem for myself. How do I help this person? Cool. You've got a business development coach. You have mentors. You have a whole business development team that can say, all right, sweet, awesome. You've decided to be a producer as opposed to just a consumer. You've got someone that needs help. Let's help them together. So incredible, incredible for you guys. A college dropout who shares, I'd say a high school dropout who shares what they have helps more people than a PhD who shares nothing. So let's move into mistake 2 that I made. I made this in a contest prep of mine. So we'll just talk about that. I hired Beverly International. They were going to do my prep. I drove about 2 hours to Cincinnati from here in Indy to meet with them every Saturday. And I did a lot of what they did, but then I also shared it with my buddy. My buddy was a bodybuilder. He was actually a PhD as well. So I'm like, hey man, what do you think? He's like, that's mainly good, but do this too. Cool, thanks, I'll do this. Then I had some knowledge then, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna add this. Then I asked the big guy at the gym, hey, what do you think? He's like, yeah man, that's cool, but you gotta take this supplement. And it was the worst, it was 2007. It was the worst prep I ever did in my life. Why? Because it wasn't Beverly's prep. I didn't follow their system and process. I followed a little bit of theirs, like 60%, but then I adopted all these other systems and processes and ideas from other people. And it was just a hodgepodge of a mess. So a lot of times we see kindergarteners or people just learning. I love kindergarteners because they're the most apt to learn and apply. They have no fear. So they consume and then they immediately produce and tell you what they learned about. But we have a lot of kindergarteners who are looking at high schoolers and saying, oh, no, I'm going to do what they're doing. You will do what they're doing once you've graduated to that level. So a good example is, some of you know him, Hudson, New Age Nutrition. He's not currently in the system. We may see him in the future, but he's not currently in the system. And what he did is he used the system and followed it to the T. He got to around 15K a month in 6 months. And then he started to add. So he built this foundation. He started adding all these things, all these other systems, all these other processes, huge investment into his business. And now he's probably, we had a conversation there, he's probably 38, 40 plus K, maybe more. We talked a little numbers, but not exact. So say 40K plus a month. But a lot of people, when he would do a training, they'd be like, oh, I got to do what he's doing. He's hitting 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. We've got to demonstrate competency. That's a tough word. Competency on hitting off the tee. So following the system. And team, when I did this, I told you I've done all these mistakes. When I did this, I did it to prove it wrong. I did the DMOs to prove them wrong. I didn't think they would work. I was like, no way, dude. You know, because I was a brick and mortar. I was like a knock on your door salesperson. I was a pick up the phone call, do cold calls. I'm like, there's no way people are going to respond to messages. Get out of here. They hardly respond to me knocking on their doors. They hardly respond to me cold calling them. You're saying they're going to return a message? But what I didn't understand is the whole attraction marketing process that the DMOs encompass. So I went in a mean spirit. I went in to prove it wrong. And I was going to talk to the people who taught this to me. And I was going to show them I did this. Here's everything. And it just, after a week, I was like, dang, all right. I'd like that 15 years of my life back now. Part of not following the system that we see is either not charging what the market has proven that they will pay. And these are all beliefs. These are all limiting beliefs. But either undercharging or worse yet, not charging at all. Well, why would you say worse yet? I want to help my brother-in-law out. I want to give it to him for free. I want to do like a case study. I just want to help him out. Well, if you know the science and psychology of pricing, you know that people that have zero investment up front are less apt by a landslide because their subconscious doesn't see value. People don't follow what they don't see value in. That's why if you're waiting on your friends and your family to hire you, they won't. They will do it for free for a couple weeks and then starkly disappoint you because they don't execute, because they don't see value, because you didn't charge them. So undercharging or not charging at all. So we have trying to keep up with someone's, 15th chapter in the book when we're on chapter 1. That's part of this mistake, not following the system or chasing newness versus mastery. We have undercharging that falls under this. And then also what falls under this is just not showing up for practice. Last mistake, I made this mistake all the way up till I was 40. A really good friend of mine had to just look me in the eye, and she said some really hard truths for me to accept, but I thank her for doing that. Because this is recent. I'm still kind of going through and advancing through this. But what it is mistake 3 is not embracing the skill of sales. There is no better tool, an economic resilient tool, than sales to help another human being. Most of you, if you're parents, you've sold your kids already this morning. Some of it, maybe your kid's your husband. My wife sells me daily. She knows what's best for me. She keeps me on task. So we tend to sell to those we love every single day, but when it comes to selling for them, we clam up and say, I don't do sales, or I'm not good at sales. That's insane. You just sold to your kids, but now you're saying you won't sell for them to help other people? That's interesting. The best salespeople in the world have these skills. And it's cool because I don't even have to remember these skills because I can just remember what I stink at. Listening. The best salespeople are the best listeners. Anyone that makes half a decent living in sales will tell you that. The best listener. Now, the junkie salespeople, they're the ones that like talk and you can't stand them. That's why you don't like salespeople, because you run into some junkie salespeople. And they talked and manipulated, lied and cheated. I'm talking about the best. I'm talking about people that have perfected this skill or are perfecting. Great listeners. The best salespeople are great empathizers. When you talk to a good salesperson, you feel understood. Chris Voss and his team uses that. Their sales team, their sales teams have to take people out of like hostage negotiations. It's life or death. It's not like split the difference where it's like, okay, if you kill half the hostages, cool, but let's just split the difference, give us half. So you got 100 people hostages, that's split the difference. That's compromise. You kill half and we get half and we all know. They have an all or nothing. Their success rate is 93%. And their number one skill, even above listening, which you kind of have to listen to empathy, is empathy. The people who are holding these hostages, the worst of the worst crimes, the worst of the worst crime lords, feel understood. And if you ever listen to any of his podcasts, they've had heinous human beings say, you know what? I never wanted any money. I was going to kill the person and his family. They were dead. I was just having fun. But something you did, I don't know, they should promote you. And then the guy hangs up. True story. When people feel heard and understood, that's when we're able to lead them. But if they don't feel listened to and they don't feel heard or understood, that's when they shut down and they're like, oh my gosh, how do I get off this call? And then lastly, when people feel listened to, people feel understood, we can solve their problem. Now, some people you can listen and they feel understood. They don't have a problem that you solve. Back off. Don't be the bad salesperson. Don't give them 50 reasons why they need your business when you know you need it, but they've told you no. They've told you, you don't solve my problem. Maybe you do, but if they've told you no, you've listened, you empathize. Hey, it sounds like there's just no value in what I'm offering. No problem. And they might say, well, it's not that. Can you explain this? Or they might say, no, there isn't any value. That's where salespeople, that's where if you don't embrace sales or you're like, I don't want to do sales, that's why you've encountered too many junky salespeople. The last thing I'll say about sales, and we're going to do Q&A, is guys, success leaves clues. All of these mistakes that I just went over, like the education, that was huge for me. But I just looked at my parents. They were in the education system. They really, really struggled. So I started looking for people that were super successful, and all of them had kind of broke out from that system. I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting. What are they learning? So success leaves clues. When it talks to not following the system, well, that kind of is self-explanatory. You know, if you don't follow a system, if you run to third base instead of first base, the system says hit the ball, run to first base. If you run to third, it's kind of self-explanatory. And then not embracing the sales skills, write down the top 10, or that's a lot. Write down the top 5, top 3 people who make a difference, who are like making mass differences in the world. Building missions, building soup kitchens. I'm talking like, they're all very, very skilled at sales. They're all great listeners, great empathizers, and solve people's problems. And they use the fruits of their labor to then solve even more problems selflessly. So that's all it took for me. I'm like, man, it seems like all the people that I know are takers that aren't really givers, aren't really doing these skills. So Bradley, Chris Voss, Grant Cardone, that's what some of the best salespeople would be said. And what's very interesting, and this is the last point that, like I said, that I'll make about sales. Now, this is not a religious comment. We're not a religious organization. I am simply using this as history of the best salesperson in the entire universe, and will live on, I believe, to be the best salesperson. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so again, I'm not saying this in a religion standpoint, but I'm saying in a historic standpoint. Jesus was the best salesperson ever to walk the face of the earth. Why? Well, what was he selling? He was selling salvation and how to live abundantly. Okay, cool. You would think he would go to the low-lying fruit, the people who are living good lives, the people who are rocking and rolling, the people going to church every Sunday. Those are the easy sells, right? Yeah, they're not gonna, go to them. Who did he go to? He went to the people he can help the most. Prostitutes. Really? You're gonna try to sell you're gonna try to sell all the good deeds, being a good person, all that good stuff, and you're gonna go to a prostitute. Well, who needs it most? Who's hurting the most? He went to thieves. He went to some, what I would kind of term like rough folks, people that didn't have really good language, He went to corrupt politicians, tax collectors. So when you're selling, I would invite you to do the same and to just model the behavior. And Bill Bradley, Chris Voss, Grant Cardone, I'm sure they all do the same. Sell to those who need it, but you're going to get the most rejection. And he was eventually killed for selling for the people who need it. Well, I don't want you to die, of course, but I do want you to take this example and say, you know what? I'm going to overcome my fear of selling or sending a message because I truly want to help this person. Now, maybe they're not in the market, or maybe they are in the market and they tell you, get lost. Okay, no problem. We'll move on to the next one. He was told, a lot of people told him to get lost, but a lot of people didn't tell him to get lost. And he, in essence, saved a lot of people. Just like in your program, if you embrace this and quit the, if they like me, they'll come to me. That's a very arrogant statement because it's saying that everybody knows who you are. No, Jesse, they know, they'll come to me. Okay, you've heard the analogy before. You're either the type of person that sees someone pulled over on the side of the road because they blew out their tire. You're the person that drives by slow and says, hey, if they ask me for help, I will help. Or you see the old lady, kind of struggling, getting groceries out. Maybe she's got a bottle, like the canisters of water on the bottom. Are you the type, well, she sees that I'm fit. I'm right in front of her. She sees that I'm fit. If she needs help, she will ask me, or he will ask me. Or are you the person that says, hey, can I grab that water for you? It's very simple.